Good morning, guys. Sorry, it's 10:16. I'm a little bit late. Um, yeah, so we go for another episode of the Croissant Files. Well, today I'll try to keep it short because I would like to attend Henrik Blatt's Capital Live. I don't know how he named his event today, but if you go to LinkedIn and go to Henrik Black's profile, and the link is in one of his the link is in one of his posts this morning. So I want to do that today. So I try to keep it in time, meaning that finishing before 11 a.m. It's actually a bad start because I'm late, but it is what it is today. So we'll go. Maybe I'll try to organize this, even though I know I won't be able to do it. But I'll try to organize things by one topic on geopolitics, one topic on economy, and one topic on markets if I can. But I won't. So, I mean, let's not waste any time. I hope that everyone who wanted to join this morning is here. Again, say hello if you can in the chat so that I can see who's there, and let's start. So you see the first, the cover of the presentation, which is the BRICS, obviously, which is the main event that started this week, yesterday, I believe, on Thursday. Yeah, maybe yesterday, in Kazan, Russia, and it's already no. We won't talk about this bit later. I had planned to talk a little bit about the election because if you see in the prediction markets, even in the betting markets, Trump is leading quite significantly. At the same time, the official polls from mainstream media is saying that there's still a 50-50 chance between the two candidates. I also believe that they don't basically the MSM polls don't want to be wrong. So I mean, saying that it's 50-50, whoever comes up at the end, say okay. I mean, it was in the margin of error, so there's no big deal. But this is where the market is. There have been significant evolutions this week, showing that the Harris campaign is collapsing at this point, using the Hitler rhetoric, which is to me a kind of a desperate move. This is the only thing they have, so that's what they use. I don't think it will work anyway. Other important thing: the Washington Post has decided not to endorse any candidate when it's the WAPO is extremely on the left, and they're not even endorsing Kamala Harris, probably because she's not likely to win at this point. Other important thing to note is CNN. They have started, I've seen a segment the other day, and CNN seems to be preparing its viewers about a potential popular vote for Trump, which would be huge. In 2016, I believe that Hillary Clinton was leading by 9 points. She lost. Biden was leading by 6 points in 2020. He nearly lost, and now basically it's flat, which means that well, in the current polls, official polls, I would say, which means that Trump could even win the popular vote, which again will remove one big point for the Democrats about switching from basically against the Electoral College. Last thing about the election, the early voting has started. There is a really significant engagement from the Republicans, probably to try to avoid any kind of late minute voting day, shenanigans, I would say. So usually early voting is massively Democrats, and now the Republicans are really committing this because basically they just don't want to lose this election, at least the voters. So this will be interesting. That's it about the elections. Next, BRICS. That's a big one, I believe, because it's already a massive success for Putin in Russia, considering the participation of countries to this summit. There is about, I believe, yes, 40 countries participating to this summit, and you have so China, Putin, so China, Xi, Putin, and Modi united at the BRICS summit, where they have expressed that they want to counterbalance the West. At this point, again, they represent more than half of the population. So I mean, saying that Russia is totally isolated is, which has been the rhetoric basically from the U.S., from Europe, basically the West, since the war with Ukraine has started, is a total nonsense. It's also a proof that, as I said in an article as soon as April 2022, maybe right after the war started, that sanctions do not work. This is, this is, I'm laughing because there's a clown minister of economy in France that they said that with the sanctions they would crush the Russian economy, which obviously didn't happen for several reasons. I mean, Russia found the outlets for its production, both in oil, gas, but also, wheat, for instance. The difference is that they were not sending it directly to Europe. They were sending it through proxy. For instance, Europe was buying oil from India that was getting at a premium, and India was getting it from Russia. So it just didn't work. It actually helped the Russian economy. The IMF has ranked Russia as the fourth largest global economy, only behind, or in terms of purchasing power parity, only behind the US, China, and India. And the IMF forecast that it will stay like this at least until 2029. So we have no idea where the situation in Ukraine will be at this time, but that's what they expect. And they also even raised their estimate for GDP growth in Russia, and they're projecting a 3.6 increase by the end of the year, which is very significant. Again, if I go back to the clown in France, the one that wanted to crush the Russian economy with sanctions, I mean, the economy in France, I believe the growth is around 0.5%. So, and obviously, I mean, this is basically what I said in the article 2 years ago, is that Europe will suffer most because they are cutting themselves from cheap energy. And there's an economist in France that I really like. He says that economy is simply energy transformed. So all cheap energy transformed. So they were cutting the access to cheap energy, which obviously hurt the economy. So this is where we are now. But again, like I said, I mean, the BRICS summit, and specifically the Russians, have specifically expressed their willingness to develop an alternative, a second pole in a multipolar world beside the US and the West, and not under the influence of the West. I don't know, probably you've seen this week that Putin has been presented a mock bill of what could become, the bill of the BRICS. That could be supported by gold, actually backed by gold. If you over the last decade, Russia and China have been buying massively gold, potentially to back up a new, reserve currency, at least for specifically for the BRICS region. Um, they now the Russia holds about 20% of the world's gold reserve. China 8.1, I believe. My numbers might be wrong, or I read it wrong. No, the BRICS total hold 20% of gold reserves, which is not big, but since from the point they started, the raise in their gold holdings has been quite significant. So maybe that's the backing for a second reserve currency in the world. So I think that's it about this summit. I think it's very important because it shows that not only BRICS is a real thing, it's developing. They have momentum. A lot of countries are pushing the door to join the BRICS. I think they have so there are 40 participating. There are 13 currently applying to join the BRICS, even though some significant countries such as Turkey will not join because of some vetoes. India vetoed Turkey joining because Turkey is supporting Pakistan, which is another big issue for Turkey, because they were knocking at the door of Europe, and Europe actually say, okay, we'll open the door, but they actually never did, and that's why Turkey turned kind of away and tried to join the BRICS now, but it would probably left out for that reason. And never forget that Turkey is also a country that is a member of NATO, which again is a big issue if you want to join the BRICS. What else can I tell you? The BRICS, I think we're done right now. Yes, I mean it was just kind of a little thing to illustrate the situation in Ukraine that didn't move. Why do I show that? Because there are currently a lot of protests in Georgia. Next Georgia, not the U.S. Georgia, but the Georgia in Europe, which has a border with Russia. And basically, I would say the CIA is trying to pull the same stunt as they did in Ukraine in 2014, with massive protests, trying to topple the government. There are elections coming, so that could be basically the same plan. The situation in Georgia is again difficult. It's a battle of influence between Russia and the U.S. Both are trying to control this country, obviously. Well, I won't go into details because that will take me too long. But the situation is very similar with the situation that was in Ukraine in 2014. It's just the roles are reversed between the parliament that is pro-Russian in Georgia and the president that is pro-European. So we'll see what happens, but this is worth keeping an eye on. I won't mention the little map at the bottom. It's maybe if you actually read the my Croissant files, I probably share a word about it. Oh, now people are even saying hello in French. Bonjour, Jeff. Nice to see you. I need to be more reactive with this shit. I should not look like that. I've been said. Don't anyone crushing anything is put in. Yes, that I agree. I mean, France is in a massive mess these days. But to be honest with you, it's they put themselves in that kind of situation. And I had this conversation with my neighbor the other day. He said, it's okay, so we have so according to him we have poor choice in terms of candidates in the US. One is obviously, to me at least, better than the others but I mean, at the end of the day, people get what they deserve. I mean, if we have the politicians that we have, we are the first responsible for that. And that's the same thing in France. I mean, French population has voted themselves into that situation, and this is where we are. Price of oil, yes. I mean, yes, I want to mention that the price of oil is interesting because it's I think it's not related to geopolitical events anymore. We see that the situation in the Middle East has basically not moved. Ah, thank you. I just saw something. The geopolitical situation is not really a factor anymore, as we've seen, as the situation in the Middle East. The driver now for oil is the economic activity. And at the same time, you've seen that the US is now a net producer of oil at this time, so totally independent from any other country. I've seen some information about China not being independent in terms of oil, but their reserves are really high. So that, I believe, that would put some pressure on the price of oil. At the same time, a recession is expected. So I think that will be a big factor. Hello, LinkedIn user. Yes, no, that was the Georgia in Europe that I was thinking about. I don't know if they're becoming libertarian. So Henrik is very nice. He's been putting me live in the Capital Cafe. That will happen at 11 a.m. Remember that? That's why I want to finish in time, because I want to rush and move to his Capital Cafe. That is always, a really great time to spend with these events. So if you can join, he has a link posted. Don't hesitate to posted this here, and I will share the link on the screen. Thank you, Henrik. So let's move on. Oh no, I need to do this. Oops. Okay, just a quick word about the situation in the Middle East. One thing that I think is significant is that Israel has destroyed, as you've seen, the great Omari Mosque in Gaza. Why I think it's important? It's because every time a cult location is destroyed, this has a greater meaning, specifically, in this part of the world. Let me put this. Oops. Okay, so that's just another interruption. That's the Capital Cafe live, 11 a.m. EDT. If you want to join, I will keep this here so that you can still see it. So yeah, so why is it important? I mean, it's a cultural eradication, I would say, which actually shows, I believe, the clear intentions of Israel that are, I believe, now totally clear, is that they want to clean the Gaza Strip from any Palestinian presence. They want to remove any kind of, anything that could remind basically that that Palestinians were there at this time. I am expecting now a full annexion of the Gaza Strip, rather sooner than later, specifically if the conflict is starting with Iran. That on that side, on the conflict with Iran, Israel has urged the U.S. To support them following the attack of Iran, to be more involved, to protect the Jewish state. But at the same time, Anthony Blinken said that he failed to convince Netanyahu to not retaliate again against Iran after the last bombing. Everyone was thinking that the response from Israel would come sooner. Obviously, you see there are huge debates between the US and Israel about the response to give to Iran. That I think that will be a really a big factor what happens, because at the same time, you have Israel not listening to the US anymore about what they want to do, because they obviously know that whatever they do, I mean, it's like your the kind of a kid that just cannot stay in place. Even if you do stupid things, basically you'll help them anyway, and that's I believe that's what Israel thinks. They okay, we'll bomb the out of Iran, and whatever happens, the US will come to protect us anyway, which is very likely to happen. I don't see a case where the US said no, you've been too far, and we won't help. This cannot happen. So Israel will engage into the response they want to, and from there, all options are on the table. I just put a little infographic showing that what the U.S. government aid has been giving per capita, so per person, to people. For instance, it was $750 for Hurricane Helena survivors. It's $1,500 per capita for Ukraine and $2,300 for Israel. So all the complaints that the money is rather going to foreigners than U.S. citizen is not totally unfounded. Next, what do we do next? Oh, Xi, yes. I mean, Xi, this is, just look at this. I mean, this image is important because this is the first time that Xi is appearing since he joined, since he's been in power. This is the first time that Xi Jinping is appearing in combat uniform, which says something, because he was giving a speech saying that he asked all military in China to be ready for war and to be ready for combat, with obviously the objective to reclaim Taiwan at this point. And just basically a very highly military, let's say, how do you say this? I don't even know how you say this. So really combative speech from Xi. Be ready for war, be ready to reclaim Taiwan. They are probably now at this time in the best position possible to do that. Why? Because the US is already engaged with Ukraine and Israel. If a conflict starts in the Middle East, obviously the US will be busy and have less, let's say, options, less forces to protect Taiwan. So what is certain is that this time China is ready for war. The thing, basically, they have the, I would say they have the advantage. Contrary to the US, they have high weapon stocks. US stocks are depleted at this time. The economy is what it is, but it's not as bad as I would say it's level. They have self-sufficient. The army is ready. The only issue is that China has no experience in war. at this time, and that could be a very big factor. If we've seen, if you see Napoleon, for instance, I mean, this guy has been able to win battles and war with much less combatants, just because he was better and he knew what he was doing, and the relatively unexperienced Chinese army could be a defining factor. And by the way, I mean, if you want to elaborate on this, this is one probably the reason that you saw that North Korea sent troops in Russia. Ukraine has been the training ground for armies in the world. There are people from everywhere fighting in Ukraine, actually. So you have Russians, you have Ukrainians, you have I would say undercover. You have a lot of actually armies present there. They call them mercenaries, but they are not really. And this becomes a training ground both for combatants, but also for technology such as drone war, that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's probably, and this will be interesting to follow. So next we move to the economy, and the economy, the U.S. debt that is spiking. I don't know what the government is doing at this time. You've seen in October they have increased the debt like crazy, probably just to make sure that the next president will be handled a catastrophic situation that he could not get away from. If we look at the numbers for the economy, it's really astonishing. So the October bump is worth $473 billion. And now it's the U.S. debt has reached about $36 trillion. That's an insane amount for every American. In 2024, the U.S. has paid a total of $1.16 trillion on interest only on the debt. Just imagine the things that you could do is this. We have a deficit in terms of percentage of GDP that is at World War II level, when we are not even officially at war. So I let you imagine what happens if a war starts at this point. And this is maybe I can go faster on this, but there's only one way that governments manage to get away from that kind of this debt situation, is to inflate the debt to massive inflation. You pay with $1 you pay back with $1 that is not worth anything. So it's once you have inflation, that's pretty easy to repay your debt. So why did I say that? Maybe we can move that. But just to say that by 2054, the interest costs will nearly triple the historical government spending on R&D, infrastructure, and education. So everything will be sucked out by the payment of interest of the debt interest. That's totally unsustainable at this point. Everybody knows it. They will have to find a way out of it. And at this time, whoever is the next president, I believe there will be no other option at this time. Even if Musk says that, just apply the same regimen that he applied to X, when removing 80% of the workforce, at X, at Twitter. Now imagine removing 80% of the workforce in the government. I don't think that it wouldn't even be enough to, to reduce the deficit reduction wouldn't be enough to be able to pay that kind of debt. So inflation is probably the solution for the government, and this is probably what the 10-year U.S. Treasury yield is telling us. Exactly at the time that the Fed cut its interest rate, basically because the Fed, has to pay its own interest on the debt, so that they are driving the interest that they actually pay, so that they have no other option than reducing the interest rate to be able to lower the debt level. At the same time, the U.S. Treasury really understand that it's a path to probably hyperinflation at this point. This is why the rates are rising. And investors basically are demanding higher yield to protect against the reckless U.S. debt at this point. This is why you see the U.S. 10-year yield rising, and this is a major warning, in my opinion. I don't know if you've heard Paul Tudor Jones the other day on CNBC, maybe, and what he said, is basically what we've been saying here for quite a few months, I would say, considering the U.S. Economy situation. And Paul Tudor Jones mentioned that basically because of the U.S. debt and the path towards inflation is long gold, long Bitcoin, long Nasdaq. These are three basically parking for cash, I would say, if you want to preserve your assets in terms of high inflation environment. Even stocks, for instance, stocks is always better than fiat anyway. But what he said, commodities in general, and also short bonds, which all make sense in terms of an inflation situation. So I repeat, this is not an investment advice. I'm just mentioning. Yes, this one. I'm just mentioning what Paul Tudor Jones said, which I happen to agree, obviously, if you have been following this Croissant file for quite some time. It's 10:47. I need to accelerate again. Let's do this. So, same context, same thing. You see the market cap of Bitcoin and gold going up. Gold, I believe, is up 33% year to date. It's massive, but again, it's not unsurprising considering what the Fed has been doing. So let's move on. Okay, we'll skip that. It's just another indication that the economy is heading towards a recession. The manufacturing activity is getting lower. The jobs posting is getting lower. It's now at the job posting in the US is actually at the level of right after pandemic, which kind of insane to realize to me. Now let's go to the market. We have, yes, I try to take 5 to 6 minutes to do it. So let's do this. So forgive me, Henrik, I will hide this so that everyone can see. Again, markets, not investment advice, even though this one is not about investment advice. It just shows that very higher concentration in the top US companies in the US. Everyone is piling up into a very few number of companies. I've seen statistics the other day that only 27% of stocks are beating the index, which is why stock selection is pretty difficult to do. But now, it's even more difficult because everyone is piling up in the top that are performing, which is basically Nasdaq and S&P are getting closer every day. It is what it is. Okay, let's move on. Let's be fast. So week, average week, the S&P down about 1%, Nasdaq slightly up. There's nothing much to notice from there except the fall in bonds, for instance. that are negatively oriented. Again, like I mentioned before, we had Bitcoin, down 3% on the week. Basically, that's kind of in the noise, which is interesting. I mean, on Friday, the SEC has issued, an action against Tether, which doesn't make much sense, to be honest. But 2 weeks before the election, if you needed basically one last, let's say, argument about where the current administration stands, considering cryptocurrencies, there you have it. Obviously Harris refuses to position herself regarding cryptocurrencies. Basically, we have the answers. And on top of that, I mean, it doesn't really make sense. Why? Because Tether is in a world where you would go more significantly towards Bitcoin. For instance, Tether, basically, the collateral for Tether are what? Treasury bonds. So this gives the Fed a really big parking, a massive parking to put their treasuries on and finance the debt. So this is and this is basically why it doesn't make much sense, in my opinion. So that's the S&P. So you've seen it. Nothing much. It looks toppish, to be honest, at this point. What is this? Dow Jones Industrial. So less concentrated, more industrial values. It was suffered much more this week again. You have, what is this? So that's the bonds. The bonds are going down. They are probably, we might be at the beginning of a significant drop in bonds if the debt is continuing, and if basically investor lost confidence in the US to repay its debt with money that still have a significant value. So you have oil that I addressed rapidly. That I addressed rapidly at the beginning. Again, I'm lost my words again. I don't know. The economic activity, yes, no, the geopolitical context has less influence on oil, like I said, for two reasons. US being a net producer of oil, China having large reserves. You still have Saudi Arabia now being part of the BRICS that can help China. So basically, I don't think there's really much tension on oil at this point. And if you add this again, the context of a recession potentially for 2025, that would become official, and that has been hidden so far, that could put more pressure on oil. What is it? Oh yes, the reason that I put this, I only have 2 more slides, so we're done very rapidly, because I need to basically just to make one last point. So that's basically Bitcoin. Like I said, US government launched an investigation on Tether, USDT, which again is a massive parking for treasuries. You can see that kind of announcement probably would have triggered a drop in Bitcoin much more significant than 2.7%, probably 5, 6, 7, maybe 10% at some point. 10% is probably exaggerated at this point, but not so long ago the Bitcoin would have dropped much bigger than what it did on Friday. Which again is a positive for Bitcoin at this point. We're still waiting to where Bitcoin will be going at this point. This time is starting to look to be inching higher. And that goes again with the correlation with M2. I don't have it here, but basically the price of Bitcoin is lagged when you compare it to the money velocity at this point. Thank you, Cliff. Thank you, Cliff, for joining. I'm done in 2 minutes. I'm sorry about that, but 2 minutes. Thank you. It's 10:55. Well, so basically that's what I was saying. And yeah, so I want to make my last big point is that you see gold going up, you see Bitcoin going up. Here you see the US dollar index going up. And these are three, and bonds going down very importantly. So except bonds, gold, Bitcoin, maybe not Bitcoin, the nature has changed, but if you only consider the classic ones, such as gold and the US dollar, they are massively rising. And these are usually risk-off assets, which means that even though the stock market is going up, there is a higher risk in the market than what the stock market is giving us. And it's go back to what I showed you last week. The VIX is still going up. The MOV index, which is the volatility index for bonds option, is also going up. So the risk, the perceived risk behind the hood, below the hood, under the hood for the market is going higher. And this is something that need to be noted, because if you only look at the stock market, you say, okay, we are near the highest high, everything's fine, everything looks great. But again, under the hood, you have a lot of warning sign. Bonds dropping, interest rate going up. You have USD, the dollar index going up, it's a risk-off asset. You have gold going up, this is a risk-off asset. So, I mean, so this generates a word of caution at this time. So I'm done, guys. If you want to leave, you can, because it's 10:57 and I will join my friend Henrik Blatt there. So I can remove this. Give me 1 sec. I need to answer to my friend. Oops, no, sorry about that. Yeah, so this chart for the dollar index starts in September. This is daily data. I usually show daily data in my on my charts. Oh, what do I do? Come on, man. I'm lost. So what is the time frame for this chart? Time frame is daily, and this starts in September 2024. But basically, what I really wanted to show is the rise of the dollar index over the last months and a half, maybe 2 months. It started rising in September. If you compare with gold, the volatility indexes both on equities and options. And on bonds, going up. There's a lot of warning signs under the hood. So yeah, so see you in there. Yes. Okay, guys. I remember you that you can switch to Henrik Black's event. It's always a great time. He's sharing great value about how to raise capital, all this. I mean, this guy is a crazy guy about systems. And as a systematic quantitative manager, I really like his approach. So stop it. It's 10:59. You join 11 a.m. Click the link and see you there, my friends. And other than that,